So over the weekend, Donald Trump authorized a mission involving about 150 planes, drones, personnel, etc., that led to the seizing of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, who are now in New York and who will go on trial. Now, this obviously creates a huge number of questions, so many questions, and it's such a big deal that I decided to make a video even though I'm on vacation in Florida. So I wanted to raise, there's obviously a lot to unpack here, but I wanted to raise five questions that I think get at sort of the heart of what we should be looking at, thinking about, asking questions of going forward. And obviously this is a developing situation, but this is where we are right now. Okay, here we go. 5 questions about the brief invasion of Venezuela, the taking of Nicolas Maduro to the United States, and what comes next. All right, so question 1. Now what in Venezuela, right? So this is the most obvious, but probably the most important question too. Donald Trump gave a press conference on Saturday where he offered a lot of thoughts that I don't know if he's going to follow through on. He said that there was the possibility of the Venezuelan leadership was resistant. There was a possibility of a second attack or a second strike by the U.S. military in Venezuela. He said the possibility of boots on the ground for the foreseeable future. He said, we are not afraid of boots on the ground in Venezuela. He said that American companies would be coming into Venezuela to handle the oil and to, in his words, sort of maximize the amount of oil that the country, which is a massive oil producer, is going to produce. And he also said on Sunday, so the day after that initial press conference, after the vice president, a Maduro supporter, the vice president, who ostensibly is in charge of the country, sort of at this point, gave a very fiery address denouncing Trump and the United States, basically like, we could get her too if we want. Okay, so I don't know where we go from here, right? Is this, how long are we going to be there? Donald Trump seemed to suggest on Saturday that we could be there for an extended period of time. I don't know what that looks like. I can imagine that we're looking at Iraq, in a Iraq-like situation where we have a situation where the U.S. is sort of managing the government for years, but who knows? So that's my first question before I get to my other 4. Quickly, you should subscribe to my channel. I'm always going to be here. I'm always bringing you the latest news. I'm always going to be independent. I'm always going to be authentic. I think that's critical in these moments. Okay. Question 2. What does Congress do? So Donald Trump did not seek an authorization of military force, use of military force authorization for the removal of Maduro. That is in keeping with the most recent historical analog we have of all this, which is George H.W. Bush in 1990, when he went into Panama, sent U.S. troops into Panama to extract Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega. At that time, George H.W. Bush informed Congress that he was doing it, but he did not ask for them to authorize it. Same thing for Trump. We have been told that the Trump administration told Congress what was happening, but did not ask them to authorize it. Now, this Congress is obviously Republican-controlled at the House and the Senate level. They have been remarkably compliant thus far to Donald Trump on matters domestic and international. They have largely given up things that are constitutionally their responsibility, spending decisions, to let Trump and the executive branch grow. I don't anticipate that changing here. I think there will be some people on the more libertarian end of the Republican Party, the Rand Pauls of the world, who will voice opposition to Trump effectively conducting a military operation that removes a dictator from a foreign country without congressional approval. But I can't imagine there's going to be any broad-scale resistance there. Plus, it's already done. Maybe if there's a second strike or a second mission, that could be different. All right, question 3. Now what outside of Venezuela? So if question 1 was now what inside of Venezuela, question 3 is now what outside of Venezuela? And I say that because on Saturday, during his press conference to talk about why he did what he did in Venezuela, or authorized what he did in Venezuela, Trump was asked about the Colombian president, who he's been critical of in the past, and Trump said something like he needs to, quote, watch his ass, which perked up my ears, because is this the first of a series of efforts by the United States military to topple dictators in South America, to effect regime change? Is Cuba on the board there? Are there other countries on the board that I don't know, but I think it is very much worth wondering about that. Because remember, Trump clearly has designs on what his legacy will be. He clearly wants to leave a mark. I will note in that press conference on Saturday, he called what happened in Venezuela part of the Don-Roe Doctrine, a play on the Monroe Doctrine of James Monroe. I don't know what the Don-Roe Doctrine is. I don't know that Donald Trump does either, necessarily, but maybe this is the first in a series of moves like this to unseat South American dictators. I don't know, but it's certainly something to watch. Question 4, and it's more of an observation than a question, but we'll put it in question form to keep this all going. What about Marco Rubio? So Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, is clearly the kind of intellectual mastermind behind what has been happening in Venezuela. Obviously, the extraction of Maduro is the most serious thing, but we seen a buildup out off the coast of Venezuela. We've seen drone strikes against boats that Donald Trump's administration insisted were narco-terrorists. We've seen the seizure of Venezuelan oil. So this is the latest in a series of moves that Rubio has helped orchestrate without any question, designed as a pressure campaign and now more than a pressure campaign. Well, Rubio's got a lot on the line here. He is reportedly the connection to the current Venezuelan leadership. He speaks Spanish. It makes sense. He's the Secretary of State, but he's really involved here. So where do we go from here? Again, are we invading other countries? Are we toppling other dictators in South America? Rubio would like to be president. Never forget that. And in 2028, he may see his chance. Maybe he waits. But this is going to be a defining moment, certainly for his tenure as Secretary of State, but maybe for his political career. The decision to do this, and then what comes next? Are we in Venezuela for the next 5 years? Are we there for 5 weeks? What does it look like? Is Maduro replaced by a stable American ally or not? And I think Rubio, obviously Trump owns a vermin of that, but so does Rubio. Last question, the 5th. What does the Make America Great Again movement make of this move? So a big part, not all, but a big part of Trump's appeal to his MAGA base is this idea of America first, which basically means, as he articulated it, the U.S. and its presidents have spent way too much time outside the borders of the United States. We need to focus inside the borders. We need to spend money and time inside the borders of the United States to make sure that we are taking care of our people first. At that press conference on Saturday, Trump was asked by a reporter, how does this invasion and extraction of Maduro in Venezuela, how does that fit America first? And he gave some answer like, well, we need to protect our interests and our resources, referring to the oil in Venezuela. I don't know how that will sit with the MAGA base. And when I'm talking about these America First wing of the MAGA base, I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm talking about Steve Bannon, that type of, even J.D. Vance, although he won't be critical of Donald Trump. People who said, why are we focused on Ukraine when we need to be focused on the United States? Why are we focused on Rome, Italy? We need to focus on Rome, Georgia. That idea. Those people had already grown a little bit more alienated than the rest of the MAGA base from Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a prime example of that. So how much or how little do they speak out? Is there a real and lasting criticism of Trump from those folks? Or do they just say, well, this is just the reality of the situation? So those are my 5 questions. Now what in Venezuela? Question 1. What does Congress do, if anything? Now what outside of Venezuela? Watch Marco Rubio. How does Rubio react? What does he deal with in terms of his legacy online? And last, the MAGA base, and what does it mean for them, particularly the America First wing of that base? As always, look, I ask you to subscribe. We are in 2026, critical election year. We have the House and the Senate majorities in play. We have 36 governors' races on the ballot. We're 4 days into Donald Trump's second year as president, and we are already talking about whether we are going to be in regime change mode. It's in South America. So a ton going on. I hope that you hit that subscribe button. Independent, authentic voice. Mainstream media. I was once there. I am no longer. I will always be here for you. I also hope you like and comment on this video. That helps me grow with folks who are not already subscribers. Last thing you can do, be an evangelist for me. Tell people why you like what I do and why they should check it out too. All right, everyone. Take care.